guys, Hayden here with yet again another book review. Today I'm going to be going over Tara Westbrook's Educated. This book is a memoir, and it was written by a woman named Tara Westbrook, who was raised not necessarily in the Mormon church, but in a Mormon extremist family is what I'll call it. So they had Mormon ties and beliefs, but took it to the highest, in almost culty degree. Now, this book is not for the faint of heart. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't necessarily highly recommend it to everyone. Some people would really enjoy it, and there's certain people I would recommend it to, but it's not a book that I would just be trying to buy for people by any means. Though it's gotten a lot of attention from a lot of people, like Obama did a thumbs up for her, Bill Gates put it on his reading list, all that type of stuff. It got a lot of attention marketing-wise, and I'm sure it did well in terms of sales, but it's pretty negative. It goes into a lot of difficulty that she faced. Now, what she did with her life is inspiring, and that's what drew me towards the book initially, is what she did with her life. She went from nothing, virtually no education other than some homeschool, which wasn't even really homeschool, to getting a doctorate degree and being in Harvard and going to Cambridge and doing some pretty stellar things with her life in terms of education and how that changed her. But just the fact that she went from those rags to that type of an education is inspiring in itself, right? It's the classic rise against all odds that are coming against you and accomplish things that nobody thought you could, not even yourself. And even despite yourself at times. And that part of the story was great, but it wasn't the biggest part of the story. She talks about being in school, but when she's in school, she's going through a crisis. And okay, so not only is it rags to riches, but the dynamics of her family and the mental health stuff that she was going through during the midst of this, and still pressing through and accomplishing these things, that's what's amazing, for sure. Now, I don't want to go too much into the story because I don't want to give it away too much, like her entire story. She goes through it herself, and you can read it if you really want to, but be warned that if you have struggles with anxiety, if you have struggles with depression, if you have struggles with panic attacks, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this book because it's a heavy book. It goes into a lot of tragedy, and there's a lot of imagery, and it's just a lot of difficulty. When she isn't having some type of tragedy or crisis with her family, she's having an internal or relational crisis at school that's associated with her family in some way. And that part of it it's pretty gut-wrenching. I'm not gonna lie, I listened to it while at work, and by the end of the day, I was just in not the best frame of mind. I had to go and work out and kind of pull myself out of a negative headspace. So if you already struggle with negativity, do not read this book. Just be inspired by the fact that just knowing somebody's done what I just described earlier. You don't need to read the book to get that inspiration. You can just know it happened, okay? But for those that really enjoy imagery, really enjoy someone who's eloquent with their words, someone who can write beautifully and think very deeply about things that went on with her and her family, and really reminisce on those things with beautiful eloquence. Even though it was all tragic and negative, it was very, very beautifully written. It was a very beautiful tragedy, right? But yeah, if you have struggles with certain things, I don't recommend it, and I'm not going to recommend it to a bunch of people. So yeah, basically she rose from rags to riches, not necessarily riches, but educated, right? And I'm sure she's not doing too bad after this book. It definitely inspired me to want to write. It put more of a writing bug into me, and I feel like it is going to be in some way formative in the style that I do a memoir or an autobiography on in the future. Which I may or may not do that, I don't know. but I wouldn't be against it because I do have a pretty cool story to tell. I've been through a lot as well. Though I don't really want to do. I just wish that she would have spent a few chapters being positive. I don't understand why the whole entire book had to be negative until the very end. And then the very end, even that wasn't necessarily negative. It was kind of just more apathetic to it all. And that's just not me. I don't care how beautifully packaged it is. That's just not me. And I don't want to hate on Tara Westbrook. She's accomplished amazing things. She's a wonderful writer, and I wish all the best for her. But come on, girl, get out of that negative headspace and get out of this crisis and get positivity back in your life and go out and live a little bit. That's what I couldn't help thinking after reading this book. So, yeah, Tara Westbrook's Educated. Her dad was intense. He was, I don't know how well-intentioned he was. I think he was well-intentioned and he dealt with some mental illness. But he was devoted to the Lord. And yeah, it was a very interesting book. Very, very interesting book. He's devoted to whatever Lord he had in his head, right? He's definitely like the doom and gloom end times type of guy that's like always like trying to get prepared for the end times, and everybody's a heathen. Like basically the worst of the worst type of Mormon that you can think of. And there's the worst of the worst types of Christians. There's the worst of the worst types of Muslims. Like basically like taking everything. If there's a pendulum that you're on, you're walking a tightrope, right, in your belief system, then this would be like taking actually cutting your ears off, actually gouging your eyes out because Jesus said to do it, right? It's taking it to a whole another extreme that's pretty associated with a mental health issue, actually. So, anyways, it goes into that. I'm not going to ruin that. If you want to read it, if you're intrigued, it's definitely worth it if you just like reading and you're intrigued by it and you don't already, if you're not already a super negative person, because I'm not a very negative person. Sometimes I get into my ruts, but definitely not my constant, so I could handle it. But it was a difficult read. It wasn't easy to get through, and I did have some crisis points within my own mind, just probably because of how quickly I read it. You know, I finished it inside like of a day and a half, just like a day and a half of work while working, but it was intense. Anyways, guys, hope this did you well. Have a good one.